Good evening, everybody. This is Peter Brown, and I will be speaking to you tonight about plant capacity and how quickly you should build that capacity. We'll be covering some facts and some tips, and then looking at some forecasting. So, let's get started. Okay, so to get things started, I would just like to tell you a little story. I currently work in the fabric restoration industry, specifically for a company called First Team, which is Fabric Restoration Service Team. My boss was getting ready to retire, so he was looking to sell, and he was talking with a gentleman here in St. Louis who owns Apple Cleaners. Apple Cleaners is a chain of storefront dry cleaning laundry service stores. And basically, what the owner of Apple Cleaners was looking to purchase First Team to increase the capacity usage of one of his dry cleaning plants. This purchase will allow the new owner to run his regular dry cleaning jobs as well as run the clothing restoration jobs, which will eliminate downtime on his machines, which would ultimately be considered wasted capacity. Prior to purchasing First Team, Apple Cleaners was running their second dry cleaning warehouse at about 20% of the capacity available. The owner, he realized that he was underutilizing this second plant, so he is now hoping he can increase that by adding in the restoration side of things and can greatly increase the size. So that's just a quick example, a real world example of how capacity affects business. And I just it was interesting that it just happened to be something that's just happened in the last month. So let's now look at some capacity facts. With capacity, there's two different types. One would be design capacity, and the other would be effective capacity. Design capacity is the theoretical maximum output of a system in a given period. Effective capacity is the capacity a firm can expect to achieve given its product mix, methods of scheduling, maintenance, and standards of quality. This is the type we are primarily using in the business strategy game. With capacity, there are two measures that you can use. One is utilization and the other is efficiency. Utilization is the actual output as a percent of design capacity, and efficiency is the actual output as a percent of effective capacity. With capacity, you could look at inadequate capacity. When capacity is inadequate, the resulting shortages can mean undependable delivery, loss of customers, and loss of market share. And finally, with capacity utilization, as I mentioned in the Apple Cleaners example, underutilization raises unit costs because fixed costs must be spread over fewer units of production. Pushing output beyond normal full capacity or overtime will also create inefficiencies. Let's look now at plant capacity specifically as it relates to the business strategy game. Determining factors for capacity include upgrades in any capacity bought or sold, and how much regular and overtime production is being run. There are a few ways to add capacity to the business strategy game, and primarily that is you can buy new capacity from another company or you can build new capacity. There is actually a third option for managing your capacity, and that is to sell off unused capacity if your managers decide that that is a route you want to take. You have the option at any time to expand the capacity of the 2 million pair North American plant and or the 4 million pair Asia Pacific plant. You can also establish a production base in the other two geographic areas. New plants in Europe, Africa, and Latin America may be constructed in capacities ranging from a minimum of 1 million pairs annually to a maximum of 2 million pairs per year, not counting overtime. New plants can be expanded later as needed. The maximum amount by which an existing plant can be expanded in any 1 year is 50% of existing plant capacity. And plants in any geographic region can be expanded over time to any desired size up to a limit of 12 million pairs of production capacity, not counting overtime. Thus, the maximum plant size in North America, Latin America, Europe, Africa, and Asia Pacific is 12 million pairs, which translate into 14.4 million pairs of total production capability with the full 20% use of overtime. New production capacity is considered to have a service life of 20 years, and the capital costs are depreciated on a straight line basis at a rate of 5% annually. There are a few places where you can find this information on capacity in the business strategy game. Ideally, your plant operations report. Let's look at that now. The plant operations report, located in the company operating report, gives details on how much you have sold off, built or purchased, as well as labor statistics, production statistics, and production costs. And all of these are important as they all will affect your capacity. Let's look now at some tips on capacity. When looking to add capacity, it is important to look at the global demand. A good way to look at global demand is a demand forecast. Demand forecasts are projections of demand for a company's products or services. These are also called sales forecasts, and they drive a company's production, capacity, and scheduling systems and serve as inputs to financial, marketing, and personal planning. Here we have an example from the business strategy game, and this example shows us a medium range forecast. A medium range forecast is also known as an intermediate forecast, and it spans, in this case, 3 years. This is useful in analyzing plant operations. This type of forecasting will support management decisions regarding planning and products, plants, and processes. Buy or build. If you are looking to build, it could be strategically important to build as early as possible, which will allow you to utilize loans with a good credit rating, as your credit rating could deteriorate as you proceed through the game. However, it is important to note when you build capacity, you will not have access to it until the following year. If you buy plant upgrades, you also want to do this as early as possible. Buying capacity costs 20% less than if you build capacity. Purchasing capacity also lets you use it immediately, again, versus if you build, you have to wait to access it. You want to purchase plant capacity or build plant capacity to meet the growing demand of your product. About capacity is that being the biggest company can be great, but it also needs to be skillfully managed, or else it can be a real burden. And capacity is a great tool to use, as the bigger it is, the harder you can hit the other companies and gain a significant edge in the business strategy game. Let's look at an example of capacity using demand and time. In the first graph, or graph A, new capacity is acquired at the beginning of year 1. This handles increased demand until the beginning of year 2. At the beginning of year 2, new capacity is again acquired, which allows the company to stay ahead of demand until the beginning of year 3. This can go on indefinitely. In the second scenario, or graph B, we have a large increase in capacity at year 1, and this satisfies demand until year 3. These scenarios allow you to acquire capacity to stay ahead of demand. The third scenario, or graph C, shows lag capacity utilizing overtime to accommodate excess demand. The fourth scenario, or graph D, attempts to build capacity that is average, sometimes lagging demand and sometimes leading it. I would like to conclude by saying to make sure that you utilize your capacity quickly and build early. The ability to speedily adjust capacity to downturns in demand could be a major source of cost advantage. With that said, I hope you all now know a little bit more about plant capacity, and I wish everybody the best of luck in the final year of the business strategy game. And thank you very much. Have a good evening.